Hello, my fellow physics members. Welcome to video numero uno, Newton's three laws of motion. Without further ado, let's get started on this lesson. Alright, beginning with Newton's first law, or the law of inertia. Newton's first law states that an object will remain at rest or in a uniform motion in a straight line unless acted upon by an external unbalanced force. This means that motion cannot change without an unbalanced force acting. If nothing is happening to you and nothing does happen, you will never go anywhere. If you're going in a specific direction, unless something happens to you, you will always go in that direction. Nothing in this world would ever want to move, but there are so many things that cause things to shift position. For instance, inertia. Inertia is the laziness in the universe. To sum all this up, Newton's first law states that all things want to keep doing what they are already doing. For example, me shooting a bullet. So, in this video, the bullet in the chamber of the gun is at an eternal rest. As the trigger is pulled and the chamber hits the bullet is no longer at an eternal rest. The chamber acts as the unbalanced force. As soon as the bullet leaves the muzzle, gravity, drag, and wind resistance act on the bullet, dragging the bullet down to the ground or into a target or a dirt hill. Moving on to Newton's second law. Newton's second law relates to the equation force equals mass times acceleration. And Newton's second law states that acceleration of an object depends on the mass of the object and the amount of force applied. An example of this would be pushing a little kid versus a big kid on a swing with the same force. I will now show you two examples of me at Topgolf versus my dad at Topgolf with the same club and the same golf ball with the same equivalent mass. This goes to show that more mass means more force and more acceleration means higher force. Since this is the equation force equals mass times acceleration, you will see in these two examples that when I hit the ball versus when my dad hits the ball, that my golf ball will not travel an even close equivalent distance to my dad's golf ball. I will now show you the two videos. As you can see, my swing compared to my dad's swing is pretty much the same. However, when my dad, being how much bigger he is than me, when he exerts a greater acceleration and him having more mass, that will equal a greater force. Newton's second law states this, that, let me draw this out for you. So, if force equals mass times acceleration, a greater mass and a greater force will output a greater mass and a greater acceleration will then output a greater force. So by me being a 1 and my acceleration being a 2, I will only put out about 2 newtons of force versus my dad being a 3 in mass times a, let's give him a 4 in acceleration, he will print out a 12 newtons of force, which is crazy compared to my 2 little baby newtons. So this just goes to show the difference in force and how more mass means more force, more acceleration means a higher force. Okay, moving on to Newton's third law, which is the law of action and reaction. It states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Here's an example. Think about the time you sit in a chair. Your body exerts a force downward, and that chair needs to exert an equal force upward, or the chair will collapse and you will look like a fool hitting the ground. This is an issue of symmetry. Acting forces encounter other forces in the opposite direction. This means that there are always two forces that are the same, so then they will balance out. Another example is when you kick a ball, like a soccer ball, for example. There is a force of your foot on the ball, but there is also the same amount of force that the ball puts on your foot. This force is in the exact opposite direction. Now I will show you a video example of this is a bottle rocket. Here's an example of a bottle rocket, and here I will now show you. So as you can see right about here, as soon as it is ignited, as soon as the bottle rocket is ignited, you will see that right here you see a flame pointed downward at the ground. The flame pointed downward is the action. The rocket shooting upward is the reaction. So this causes an equal and opposite reaction. So for every reaction, there is an action. This will cause the rocket to shoot up, kind of like when you kick a ball. Let's just pretend that's a foot, that's a ball. I know it looks like boo or bo, but when the ball is kicked, you exert a greater action on the ball, but the ball also has to exert a reaction back onto you to ensure equilibrium. Alrighty, my fellow physics members, that concludes video numero uno of our physics lesson and Bachert Science 101. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you in the next episode.